My name is Sandra Hackney, and I'm 34 years old. For most of my adult life, Christmas carried a weight I couldn't quite put down, a mix of nostalgia, obligation, and that stubborn thread of hope I never seemed able to cut. I don't have kids. I don't have some sprawling, picture-perfect family of my own. I live alone in a modest but peaceful condo with my dog Maple, the only creature on earth who has never made me question whether I'm wanted. My job in marketing pays well enough that I fly home for the holidays without checking flight prices, and I'm usually the one picking up the dinner bill, the hotel bill, the little extras. Everyone conveniently forgets to reimburse. And for years, I thought that was just my role: the eldest daughter, the fixer, the peacekeeper. My older sister Liana is 31. She has always been the golden child, not because she's particularly accomplished, but because she mastered the art of looking innocent while stirring chaos. She married young, has 2 kids, and works in IT, though our parents talk about her like she's a surgeon, saving newborns daily. My younger sister Nadine is 28. She calls herself self-employed, which is generous. She lives at home making TikToks, unboxing videos, hosting girl boss live streams. She says she's saving money for her future. Our parents proudly repeat that line like it's scripture. And then there are Mom and Dad. Mom is the over-involved matriarch who still inserts herself into every sibling disagreement like we're in middle school. Dad emotionally checked out years ago, somewhere around 2009, and now mostly grunts from behind a newspaper or TV remote. The house they still live in is the same one we grew up in. Same creaking steps, same fake pine smell, same half-broken Christmas lights that flicker like they're signaling for help, but they go up every year because tradition matters. I always stay at a hotel when I visit. After the turkey incident of 2018, I learned that spending more than a few hours under that roof is a straight line to losing my sanity. But I still show up. I still hope. Every year I tell myself, maybe this time, and every year I'm wrong. But this year I went above and beyond for reasons I still can't fully explain. Maybe it was the way Mom kept bringing up how hard the year has been for everyone. Maybe it was the subtle hinting about Nadine's slow season or Liana's job stress, as though I was financially responsible for both. Maybe it was the holiday bonus I hadn't expected. Whatever the reason, I decided to be generous. I spent over $2,000 on gifts. For Liana and her husband, a full smart home starter kit. For Nadine, the newest iPhone and a professional ring light studio setup. For Mom, a luxury spa package and a custom necklace with all our birthstones. For Dad, an expensive drill set he'd never buy for himself. And for my nieces, enough toys to make them lose their tiny minds. I wrapped everything with care ribbons, gold script name tags, and had all the boxes shipped early to my parents' house so I wouldn't have to travel with them. Mom texted me when they arrived. Everything came. You're too much, Sandra. For a moment, a tiny spark of hope lit in my chest. Maybe this year. Christmas morning, I drove over early. I wore the forest green sweater Mom gave me last year. Because she always notices. Maple stayed back at the hotel. She'd have been overwhelmed. Inside, the scene was exactly what I expected. Liana on the couch with her husband, their kids shrieking happily. Nadine filming the Christmas tree for her story. Mom humming in the kitchen. Dad nodding at me in that I acknowledged your existence, now leave me alone way he does. I smiled anyway, because hope is stupid and resilient. We had breakfast, then moved to the living room. Presents spilled out from under the tree like an avalanche. Nadine played Elf, announcing every gift into her phone as though she were hosting a live TV special. Everyone opened their gifts. Everyone laughed and passed boxes around. Tissue paper flew. Squeals filled the room. Except no one touched the gifts I sent. They were stacked off to the side, neat, untouched, like a shrine no one wanted to disturb. I tried to be casual. Hey, did you guys get the packages I sent, the ones that arrived early? Mom paused, just for a heartbeat. Oh, honey, yes, but we can't find them. I blinked. What? She offered a soft frown. We think they got misplaced or mixed up in the garage. We're not sure. From the couch, Liana snorted. Maybe next year don't try so hard. It wasn't the words, it was the smirk, a smug, taunting little twist of her mouth. In that moment, something inside me tilted, like a glass set too close to the table's edge. The room buzzed with noise, kids laughing, wrapping paper, ripping Nadine, narrating her feed, but none of it reached me. All I felt was cold, a deep, hollow cold. They planned this. They wanted my gifts hidden. They didn't want me to outshine anyone. And Liana's smirk, that was the confirmation. I stood slowly brushing off my jeans. Everything okay, Mom asked. Yeah, I said. I just remembered something I brought. I walked toward the kitchen, calm, focused, because I had one more gift they hadn't touched, one they didn't know about, one that wasn't wrapped in gold bows, one that was about to change everything. The kitchen was quieter than I expected, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the muffled chaos of my family's laughter bleeding through the wall. I stood there with my hands braced on the countertop, trying to steady the rising whirl of numbness and clarity twisting through my chest. I wasn't angry yet, not quite, just hollow, like someone had scooped something out of me. I opened the fridge, pretending to look for juice, anything to buy myself a moment to breathe, because I knew deep down the gifts weren't misplaced. My sisters may have been many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. That's when I heard it through the archway. Their voices drifted in faint but unmistakable. Liana first, of course. Seriously, I mean, Sandra tries way too hard. Who spends that much on Christmas gifts? It's ridiculous. A sharp, stinging pressure bloomed behind my ribs. Then Mom's voice, gentler but somehow worse. She's always been like that. She wants everything to be perfect. It's exhausting, Nadine added with a laugh. It's not even about the gifts. It's that she expects a gold medal every time she does something nice. More laughter. Dismissive, casual, practiced, like they'd discussed this before. I tightened my grip on the fridge door without realizing it until a bolt of pain shot through my palm. I forced myself to inhale slowly, then exhale, because something inside me was cracking, and once it broke, there would be no putting it back together. My eyes drifted toward the back door, where a small, matte black gift bag waited exactly where I had left it when I arrived. I hadn't planned on using it, not originally, but now its presence pulsed like a tiny heartbeat. Before I could think any further, Liana's voice rose again. She just wants attention, always has. But $2,000, it's performative as hell. Performative, like my love was an act, like generosity came with strings. Mom chimed in. She means well, but she does make everything dramatic. Then Nadine. If she's going to do the whole Santa routine, she can't pout when people don't react the way she wants. They didn't know I could hear them. Or worse, maybe they didn't care. Something in me snapped quietly, a tiny fracture, barely audible, but unmistakable. I turned away from the fridge, picked up the matte black bag, and walked back into the living room. The energy shifted the moment I entered. Liana stopped mid-sentence. Nadine froze with her phone, halfway lifted. Mom glanced up suddenly flustered. Even Dad looked over his paper. I smiled a tiny composed smile. Sorry, I said lightly. I almost forgot. I brought something special. Nadine narrowed her eyes. What's that? Oh, I said, placing the bag onto the coffee table, just something I thought I'd give out now. Mom moved closer, trying to peer inside. Sandra, honey, we still haven't found the gifts you sent. It's fine, I cut in gently. This isn't like the others. I reached inside and took out a stack of envelopes, each sealed with a rose gold wax stamp. A detail I had added purely because I liked how it looked. Because effort mattered to me. Always had. I handed the first envelope to Nadine. She blinked. Is this money? Open it. She tore it open carelessly. A folded document slid out. Her eyebrows pulled together. Wait, what is this? A lease contract, I said simply. For a downtown content studio. 6-month lease, fully paid. You've been talking about wanting one, right? Her jaw parted. You're joking. No, I said. I thought it might help you grow. Before she could respond, I handed the next envelope to Liana. She opened hers more cautiously, suspicion already bubbling beneath her polite smile. When she read the page inside, her expression faltered. This is a full home security upgrade, I said, plus 6 months of your mortgage payments, so you and the kids can breathe easier. She didn't say anything, which told me everything. Then I turned to my parents and handed Mom a heavier envelope. For you too. Mom opened it. Her breath hitched. Oh my God. Sandra, this is a Mediterranean cruise. 12 days, I said. Balcony suite. All expenses paid. But it's no pressure. It's fully refundable. Silence swept through the room like a cold draft. My nieces even stopped tearing into toys. I stood there, calm, collected, watching the truth crawl across their faces. Those were going to be your Christmas gifts, I said softly. I spent weeks organizing everything, taking time off work, coordinating with agents, paying deposits. My voice stayed even, controlled, but inside something was trembling. And then I continued, you told me you lost the gifts I shipped. Mom's eyes darted away. But the thing is, I said someone made a mistake. I turned to Liana. You shouldn't have smirked. She stiffened. I didn't. Oh yes, I said. You did. And I know your face is better than anyone. Mom rushed forward, hands fluttering. Sandra, let's just take a breath. We don't want a scene. I laughed quietly. You don't want a scene? I went into the garage earlier. Their eyes widened. I'd planned to grab a soda from the garage fridge. But guess what I found? No one answered. Every box I shipped, I said. Every gift. Still sealed. Right where you hid them. Nadine muttered something under her breath, but I wasn't listening anymore. You didn't lose them, I said. You hid them. Because you didn't want my gifts to outshine yours. No one denied it. That was the worst part. I took the envelopes back one by one. Oh, and one more thing. I smiled. All these contracts, they're canceled. Nadine's face drained. What? Liana stepped forward. Sandra, stop. This is... No, I said. Every contract had a 48-hour cancellation window. And lucky me, I planned ahead. Mom whispered desperately. Why are you doing this? Because I said you didn't just dismiss my gifts, you dismissed me. For years. I stepped back. And now I'm done playing along. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Nadine snapped, God, you're so dramatic. I turned toward the door. And for the first time in years, I felt something new. Not anger, not fear, freedom. I walked out, leaving behind the envelopes, the expensive gifts, and the family that had never once realized they were losing me. By the time I reached my car, the cold December air had already numbed my fingertips. The world outside was quiet, painfully, beautifully quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos I had just walked away from. I closed the driver's door, rested my forehead against the steering wheel, and for a long moment I didn't move. Then the tears came. Not the dramatic kind. Not the loud, cinematic sobs movies like to romanticize. Just silent, collapsing tears, the kind that make your chest ache without sound. The kind that come from wounds you didn't realize were still open. It felt pathetic. It felt necessary. It felt like the dam finally giving up after 34 years of holding everything back. When the crying slowed, I leaned back, staring at the hotel key card on the passenger seat. Maple's little paw print tag hung from the rearview mirror, catching the faint light from a distant street lamp. She was waiting for me, blissfully unaware of how shattered I was. I drove back in silence. No music, no thoughts. Just a blank numbness, like emotional white noise. When I opened the hotel room door, Maple practically launched herself at me, tail wagging so hard her whole body shook. I knelt burying my hands in her fur, breathing her in like she was the only real thing left in the world. Hey, sweet girl, I whispered. And for the first time since leaving my parents' house, I didn't feel alone. I collapsed on the bed fully dressed, my jaw aching from holding back another wave of tears. I stayed like that for hours, barely moving, barely thinking, just letting the stillness settle around me like a blanket. The morning after, I woke up feeling hollow but lighter, like the rupture had already happened, and now all that was left was the slow rebuilding. I flew home to Denver 2 days early, not out of anger, out of necessity. When I opened my front door, Maple bolted inside, sprinting to her favorite corner blanket. I stood in the hallway looking at my home, warm, quiet, unpretentious. And for the first time in weeks, something like peace nudged at the edges of my mind. But the silence didn't stay peaceful for long, because the moment I sat down, everything I'd shoved down over the years began resurfacing. The jokes I'd brushed off, the guilt trips disguised as affection, the way every accomplishment of mine became a resource for them, the subtle dismissal anytime I expressed exhaustion or boundaries, and even though I hadn't meant to do anything drastic that night in the garage, the clarity of the moment, the way they hid my gifts, laughed about it, mocked me, had sliced something clean. A cord, an illusion, a role. And now I was stripping that role off piece by piece. I unplugged from everything for a while. No social media, no calls, no family group chats. Just me, Maple, and the slow, mundane process of reclaiming a life that didn't revolve around pleasing people who never intended to understand me. I cleaned out my closet, deleted half the junk on my laptop, finally canceled subscriptions I'd forgotten existed. It sounds small, but every tiny act felt like sweeping dust out of forgotten corners of myself. Then one night, while organizing old files, I opened a folder labeled Ideas, a digital graveyard of projects I'd started and abandoned, app concepts, blog outlines, brand sketches, notes titled things like Might Be Dumb, But, and Future. One file caught my eye, Anchor, the freelancer support platform. A scribbled concept I'd drafted during the pandemic, then tucked away when life got loud. But staring at it now, something stirred, something awake, something purposeful. The last year had shown me firsthand how often freelancers, especially women, were undervalued, underpaid, overworked and dismissed. Clients ghost on invoices. Platforms skim profits. Boundaries blur. What if I built a space that fixed that A space for ethical clients? Real connections, shared resources, support. Maybe Anchor wasn't just an idea. Maybe it was a beginning. I started small. Late nights, weekends, coffee-fueled troubleshooting, webinars, interviews with freelancers I trusted. One of Daniel's old colleagues offered to help design the back end. A friend of mine knew a UX specialist. And slowly, piece by piece, Anchor stopped being a dream and became a prototype. Daniel supported me quietly but steadily, making dinner when I forgot listening, when I vented, grounding me when self-doubt crept in. He brought up his ex, Marissa, only once during those weeks, a short, awkward mention while we were cooking dinner together. She tried reaching out again, he had said gently, but I told her no. I'm here, with you. I believed him, not blindly, not because I needed reassurance, but because I could finally tell the difference between support and manipulation. Daniel was flawed human, not perfect, but he was present. A first for me. By February, I filed the LLC. By March, Anchor had 200 beta users. By April, we secured a partnership with a medium-sized digital agency that loved the platform's ethics-first structure. Growth felt surreal, earned, mine. I didn't tell my family. Not because I was hiding, because I finally understood something I had ignored for years. They weren't my audience. They weren't the people I was building my life for. They weren't where my value lived. But they noticed my silence. Mom left voicemails dripping with guilt disguised as concern. We just want to talk, sweetheart. You know how important family is. Nadine sent a smug selfie from a rented studio. Guess I didn't need your charity after all. Liana texted around Easter. Still think that stunt at Christmas was a good look. I blocked her. By May, I was different. Not unrecognizable, just whole. I walked Maple twice a day. Started therapy. Stopped apologizing for having needs. Stopped saying yes out of fear. Started investing in myself the way I used to invest in everyone else. The grief of losing a family I never truly had still hit sometimes, but the freedom outweighed it. Then one night over tacos with Cass, a UX designer I'd met through Anchor, she asked, "Why did you really start all this?" I hesitated. Then I told her. Not every detail, just the shape of the pain. The Christmas morning that cracked me open, the years before it that pushed me there. She didn't interrupt, didn't pity, just listened. When I finished, she shook her head and said, "Damn, that's not just hurt, that's betrayal." I nodded. I think I'm finally living. Good, she said, because you're just getting started. And she was right, because there was one thing I hadn't told anyone. Not Cass, not Daniel, not even myself fully. The cruise I canceled, I hadn't refunded it. I'd reassigned it. A quiet beginning to something bigger. Something deliberate. Something I never imagined I'd choose. A revenge that didn't burn bridges, it simply rebuilt me. And soon, it would reveal who they really were. By early summer, my life had settled into a rhythm I barely recognized, one built on peace instead of pressure, on choice instead of obligation. Anchor grew steadily. Maple snored beside my desk most afternoons, and Daniel's gentle presence gave my evenings a quiet warmth. But healing has a way of sharpening your vision, and clarity. Clarity exposes everything. The silence between me and my family stopped feeling like a wound and started feeling like distance, necessary cleansing distance. But distance also allowed me to see things I had ignored for years. And it started with Nadine. It came from an unexpected place, an Instagram tag notification. I rarely check social media anymore, but that day I opened it absent-mindedly. A post flashed across my screen, Nadine standing on a stage in Los Angeles, microphone in hand, backlit by a sleek banner. At first, I almost scrolled. She was always in some pop-up, some workshop, some rented aesthetic set. But then something caught my eye. The logo behind her, Anchor. My company's name, my company's branding, my color palette. My breath stilled. I zoomed in. There it was, clear as day. Anchor, the future of ethical freelancing, partnered creator event. Partnered creator event with my company. Except we had sponsored no such event. I felt my heart thud once a heavy cold hit against my ribs. I clicked the video, Nadine smiling like she owned the place, telling a room full of strangers. I work closely with the founder. She's a friend of mine. I help test new features, and I've secured multiple influencer clients through Anchor's premium tier. Every sentence was a lie, fabricated, delivered effortlessly. But it didn't stop there. She pulled up slides. Slides using my metrics cherry-picked, distorted, and in some cases completely invented. She even claimed she co-developed one of our resource libraries. I sat back in my chair, stunned. Not angry, not hurt. Stunned. Because this wasn't an accidental misunderstanding. This was calculated. Professional identity theft. Brand exploitation. She took something I built from the rubble of our family and used it as a prop to polish her fake influencer persona. And worse, she assumed I wouldn't find out. Not because she thought I'd forgive her, but because she never thought I mattered enough in the first place. That was the moment something inside me clicked. A quiet, steady click. Like a lock opening. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I started collecting. Screenshots of every slide, recordings of the panel, attendee testimonials, even a mystery shopper report from a freelancer who attended her branding workshop and noted she name-dropped Anchor 17 times. 17. I gathered every piece of evidence, filed them neatly into labeled digital folders. Nadine. Misrepresentation. Round 1. Subfolder trademark. Abuse. Subfolder. False claims. Subfolder. Brand damage. I didn't rush, I didn't rage. Revenge wasn't the goal, not yet. Truth was, because truth, when revealed carefully, is sharper than any outburst. Then came Liana. If Nadine's sin was ego, Liana's was quiet entitlement, that belief, that consequences were for other people. I didn't go digging for her secrets, not initially. But when Anchor partnered with a mid-sized tech agency, I ended up speaking with someone who recognized my last name. Hackney. Like Liana Hackney, he asked casually. My stomach tightened. She's my sister. He hesitated, then chose his words carefully. Small world. She works in IT support at our sister company. I nodded neutral. Yeah, she's been there a while. That she has, he said thoughtfully. Though, lately there have been some internal concerns. I didn't push, but he continued anyway. Nothing huge, just some red flags with how she's using company servers for freelance coding gigs. Technically not illegal, but not allowed. If compliance digs deeper, it could become messy. A beat of silence. She's mentioned working side jobs to keep things afloat, he added. Didn't realize she was routing them through the company. I kept my expression still. Because of course she would. The golden child always found a way to shine, even if she stole the light from someone else to do it. After the call ended, I opened a new folder. Liana. Compliance risks. Round 1. I documented everything. Screenshots, logs, notes, potential consequences. Not to destroy her, but to hold up a mirror eventually. One she had avoided for years. As I collected evidence, something else shifted in my life. Something small, but meaningful. Daniel grew closer. Not clingy, not intrusive. Just present. He noticed when I was quieter than usual. He made coffee without being asked. He asked questions, then actually listened to the answers. His ex-girlfriend Marissa resurfaced briefly, sending him a long message about unfinished conversations. He showed it to me immediately. I already told her I'm all in with you, he said. But I want to be transparent. I nodded. Not jealous, not insecure. Just reassured. Because transparency was new to me, and trust felt good. But even Daniel didn't know what I was building. The careful case files, the quiet unraveling of the family threads I'd once tried so hard to hold together. Not yet, because everything was leading towards something bigger. I could feel it. A moment, an opening, a trap the universe was lining up on my behalf, and it arrived exactly when I expected it. At the end of September, Mom sent a long, chipper email with a subject line that made me laugh out loud. Thanksgiving plans. The exclamation points alone told me she was already overworked and overcompensating. The email itself, a masterpiece of emotional manipulation wrapped in faux warmth. We'd love if you could handle the catering, sweetheart. You always pick the best places. Followed by, let me know if you need help covering the cost. We both know she didn't mean that. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smiled, a slow, certain smile. Because they wanted me back in my old role, the provider, the peacekeeper, the open wallet, the silent forgiver. And this time, I was going to give them exactly what they asked for. Just not the way they expected. Mom's email was so sweet it could have given someone cavities. Heart emojis, exclamation points, a cheerful reminder that family is everything, followed by a gentle nudge for me to take care of the catering. And honestly, I admired the audacity. After everything that happened at Christmas, after months of silence broken only by guilt-coded messages, after Nadine's fake partnerships, and Liana's quiet contempt, they truly believed I would slip back into place like nothing had happened. It told me everything I needed to know. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought distance meant regret. They thought the Sandra they used to control still existed. But that version of me died in the garage under a pile of hidden gifts. So I wrote back, "Yes, Mom, I'll handle the catering." And I meant it, just not in the way she expected. The plan started forming that same night, subtle as a shift in wind. I contacted a boutique catering company Anchor had partnered with before, the kind that handled luxury corporate retreats, high-end tech events, and celebrity fundraisers. Their level of service made Michelin restaurants look like fast food. The head chef, a meticulous woman named Elise, joined the Zoom call in her pristine whites. "What would you like for your Thanksgiving menu?" she asked. I smiled slowly. "I don't want food." She blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "I want everything except the food. The staff, the table settings, the silver domes, the full visual experience. But when the lids lift..." I tapped the table lightly. "Nothing, empty platters." There was a beat of silence. Then she burst out laughing, a loud, delighted, wicked laugh. "You're lucky I love chaos," she said. "You have my full attention." And just like that, the stage was set. Thanksgiving Day arrived with crisp air and the faint smell of pine from the neighbors' early holiday decorations. I pulled up to my parents' house exactly at 2:55 p.m., 5 minutes early because punctuality still clung to me like instinct. I wore a sharp black suit tailored to my frame, crisp white blouse, hair pulled back with neat precision. I didn't come as the eldest daughter who always said yes. I came as a woman who built something on her own terms. Mom answered the door like she'd been waiting for hours. "Oh, Sandra, look at you." She pulled me into a hug that felt more like a performance than affection. "You look so professional." "It's a special day," I said calmly. Her smile flickered with relief, as if my presence confirmed the illusion she'd been clinging to, that we were fine, that Christmas had been a misunderstanding, that I would always bend back into shape. But today wasn't about bending. The house looked exactly the same as it always did on holidays. The cinnamon candle Mom burned every year. The paper turkey decorations taped to windows. The dining table drowning in fall leaves and glitter pumpkins. Family friends mingling politely. Liana pretending nothing had ever happened. Nadine filming everything like she was the host of a lifestyle show. When Nadine spotted me, she lowered her phone and smirked. "You didn't bring anything." "I brought plenty," I said. "Just not the kind you're used to." She frowned, confused, then shrugged, and went back to filming aesthetic table shots. Typical. At 3:00 p.m. sharp, 3 sleek black SUVs rolled up in front of the house. The catering team stepped out in synchronized precision, white gloves, polished shoes, pressed uniforms. They carried crates, silver platters, folded linens, crystal glasses. My parents' neighbors peeked out their windows. Mom's jaw dropped. "Oh my goodness, Sandra, this is incredible." I handed her a glass of wine the staff poured for her. "You deserve the best," I said with a gentle smile. If she heard the subtle edge behind the words, she didn't show it. The kitchen transformed into a backstage set of quiet choreography. The dining room turned into a showroom, every napkin perfectly folded, every candle lit, every silver dome gleaming. The illusion was flawless, elegant, breathtaking. A masterpiece of absence. By 5:30 p.m., everyone was seated. Phones out, filters adjusted, ready for the moment they would brag about on social media. Even Dad looked impressed, which coming from him was practically emotional. The head chef stood at the head of the table, smiling warmly. On behalf of Sandra Hackney, she began, "We are honored to present a Thanksgiving experience unlike any other." My sisters exchanged smug smirks. Of course Sandra went overboard. Of course she had to outdo everyone. Of course she needed the spotlight. Let them think that. Hope is sweeter right before it dies. The servers took their positions, hands on the silver domes, waiting for my cue. I lifted my chin ever so slightly. The lids rose, and the room fell silent. Every platter, every tray, every silver dome held nothing. Not a single dish, not a single carrot, not a single crumb. Just an empty plate surrounded by immaculate garnish, and a small elegant card at each setting. Mom gasped. Nadine's phone slipped from her hand. Liana stopped breathing. The card read, "This is what you served me last Christmas. Enjoy." Silence. Pure crystalline silence. Not confusion, not shock. Recognition. They knew exactly what it meant. I stood slowly, letting the quiet stretch until it trembled. "Before anyone speaks," I said softly, "I want to thank you, truly." I placed my hands lightly on the back of my chair. This moment, this is closure. Liana shot to her feet. "What the hell is this, Sandra?" I smiled gently, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. An accurate reflection. Nadine's voice cracked. You spent thousands of dollars for a joke. No, I said. I spent thousands to make a point. One I've been trying to express in smaller, quieter ways for years. My gaze swept the table, the faces I had once bent myself into shapes to please. At Christmas, I gave each of you gifts I chose with intention. I spent weeks preparing them. I didn't do it for applause. I did it because family mattered to me. I paused. Let the truth sit. And you hid them in the garage. Mom shook her head, eyes glassy. We thought we lost. You didn't lose anything, I said lightly. You hid them. And then laughed about it. Her face crumpled. Good. Let it. Because for the first time, she was seeing the damage she'd ignored for decades. And now, I continued, you get to feel what you gave me. Emptiness. Effort discarded. Love unseen. Liana's voice shook with rage. This is pathetic. You want attention? Here it is. I tilted my head. Oh, Liana, this isn't about attention. I leaned forward slightly. This is about truth. I held Liana's gaze steady and unblinking. For once, she didn't look smug. She looked exposed. The catering staff stood silently along the walls, as poised and still as statues, an audience to the unraveling of a family that had relied on secrecy and selective memory for decades. I placed a small remote on the table. Before we continue, I said softly, I need all of you to understand something. I didn't walk away at Christmas because of the missing gifts. I walked away because the truth finally revealed itself. Mom wiped her eyes. Sandra, please. I lifted a hand gently. Let me finish. My voice didn't rise, it didn't shake, it was calm, unnervingly, unmistakably calm. A family doesn't have to be perfect, I continued, but it does need honesty, kindness, accountability. I turned to Nadine, and you of all people should understand accountability. She blinked. What are you? I clicked the remote. The dining room television lit up, and there, in HD clarity, appeared a video from Nadine's Los Angeles workshop, her confidently pacing across the stage beneath anchor branding she had stolen. Mom inhaled sharply. Liana's jaw dropped. Dad sat up straighter. Nadine's face drained of color. The video played her voice over the speakers. I work closely with the founder. She's a friend of mine. I help develop their premium features. I secure influencer deals through Anchor all the time. Every sentence a lie. Every confident gesture, stolen credibility. When the clip finished, I picked up the folder beside me and placed it on the table in front of her. Inside were screenshots, recordings, and legal documents. This, I said, is a cease and desist, already filed. If you use my company's name again or imply any association whatsoever, my legal team will proceed immediately. She shook her head in disbelief. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, I said. Because you didn't just impersonate my company. You used my success to sell false promises to vulnerable freelancers. And that crosses a line even you shouldn't cross. Nadine tried to speak, but the words died in her throat. I turned next to Liana. And then there's you. Her hands curled into fists. I didn't dig for this, I said. It came to me. That's how deep the risk is. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, froze. I sent a courtesy notice, I explained. Your company's compliance officer now has a complete report of your unauthorized freelance coding work routed through company servers. Her eyes widened. You reported me. No, I said not yet. The file is prepared. It will only be submitted if you retaliate, harass me, or attempt to twist the narrative publicly. You're threatening me, she spat. No, I replied quietly. I'm protecting myself. Something I should have done years ago. Liana's chest heaved with panic and rage. But I didn't let her interrupt. Because next, it was Mom and Dad. I turned to them, the two people whose approval I spent my entire life chasing, like it was oxygen. Mom's eyes were red, her fingers trembling. Why are you doing this? She whispered. We're your family. For 34 years, I said gently, I tried to be the daughter you wanted, the one who stayed quiet, the one who didn't rock the boat, the one who forgave everything. I took a breath. But here's the truth. You never loved me for who I was. You loved me for what I provided. Mom flinched as if struck. Dad looked down at his hands, not ashamed, not guilty, just exposed. Like he finally saw what had been obvious to everyone but him. I continued quieter now. You pushed my boundaries, dismissed my feelings, used my successes as resources, belittled my accomplishments, and every time I cried out, you told me I was dramatic, oversensitive, too much. A tear slipped down my cheek, but my voice didn't break. You hid my Christmas gifts not because they were expensive, but because you didn't want to be reminded of how little you gave in return. Mom covered her face. I didn't soften. Not this time. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing this because the truth needed to be put on the table, and you needed to see it before I walk away. Dad's voice cracked the first real emotion I'd heard from him in years. Sandra, please. But he didn't finish the sentence. Because there was nothing left to say. I turned back to the chef. You can begin packing up. Elise bowed her head and signaled to her team. The rest of the staff moved swiftly, silently, clearing the table, removing plates, folding napkins. The illusion dismantled as quickly as it had appeared. Nadine watched in horror. Liana stared blankly at the empty space in front of her. Mom silently broke. Dad sat stone still. Slowly, I picked up my purse from the back of my chair and slipped it over my shoulder. Nadine finally found her voice. You're unbelievable. I paused at the doorway, turning only slightly. No, I said, I'm free. Then I walked out. Past the stunned catering staff. Past the wilted decorations. Past the house where I had spent decades negotiating my worth. Outside, the sky had dimmed into a cold November dusk. The air smelled sharper, cleaner, like something had finally been released. I walked to my car heels, steady against the concrete, and slid into the driver's seat. For a brief moment, I just sat there breathing. Not shaking, not crying, just breathing. For the first time in my entire life, I had nothing left to prove. I turned the key, pulled out of the driveway, and didn't look back. Not even once. For weeks after Thanksgiving, the silence was absolute. Not the brittle, expectant silence of a family waiting for an apology. No, this silence felt earned, intentional. A boundary drawn so clearly it might as well have been carved in stone. I didn't block them. I didn't message them. I didn't explain myself any further. I simply stepped out of the role I had been performing my entire life and into my own. Winter melted quietly into early December. Denver's streets glittered under soft frost, Maple's paws crunching through snow as we went on our morning walks. She seemed lighter too, like she could sense the shift in me, a woman unbound, untethered. Anchor continued to grow. The partnership with the Boulder Tech Company turned into a case study that caught industry attention. Another agency reached out. Then another. A content strategy firm wanted to integrate our freelancer pool. A legal association asked us to speak at a roundtable on ethical contracting. Each week brought new emails, new opportunities, new affirmation that what I'd created mattered. And for the first time in my life, my value wasn't being siphoned off by people who only saw me as a resource. It was being recognized fully, clearly, proudly. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about expansion, about legacy, about a life I deserved. Daniel remained steady throughout it all. He didn't treat me like I was fragile. He didn't ask for details I wasn't ready to share. He didn't pretend to understand every wound. He just stayed beside me while I healed. He cooked dinners with me. He rubbed my shoulders after long work nights. He took Maple to the vet when I was swamped. He built me a shelf for the growing stack of journals I'd been filling. But he wasn't perfect, and neither was I. We had arguments, awkward miscommunications, small moments where trauma tugged old habits to the surface. The difference now was that I didn't abandon myself to keep the peace. Not for him, not for anyone. And when his ex-girlfriend Marissa resurfaced texting him about unfinished emotional business, Daniel showed me the message right away. I'm done with that part of my life, he said, kissing my forehead. You don't have to worry. I nodded, not because I feared losing him, but because I respected the clarity. Trust didn't feel like a gamble anymore. It felt like a choice, one I made deliberately. Anchored in that new strength, I began stepping into rooms I'd once felt too small for. In March, Anchor was nominated for a Regional Innovation Award. In April, we hired 2 full-time employees. In May, a well-known creative agency offered us a long-term partnership. In June, I was invited to keynote the National Freelancer Summit in Chicago. The thought of public speaking had always terrified me. But when I looked at the email, I didn't feel the dread I expected. I felt readiness. I felt ownership. I felt like I had something worth saying. Daniel insisted on coming with me. Maple stayed with a sitter who spoiled her more than I ever could. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights were bright enough to blur the faces, but I could still hear the murmur of hundreds of attendees settling into their seats. My name echoed through the speakers. Please welcome our keynote speaker, founder, and CEO of Anchor, Sandra Hackney. There it was, my name, not as the eldest daughter, not as the family ATM, not as the peacekeeper. As a leader, as a creator, as someone who built something meaningful from nothing but hurt, grit, and clarity. When I finished my talk, the audience rose in a standing ovation. I didn't cry, but something inside me stood up too. After the summit, things accelerated quickly. More partnerships, more invitations, more recognition. But none of it changed the core of my life. the quiet moments with Maple curled against my legs, the warmth of Daniel's hand in mine, the steady hum of my apartment as I built something that existed solely because I refused to stay invisible. My family, meanwhile, reappeared exactly the way I expected. First came the indirect Facebook posts, mom sharing old childhood photos captioned with things like, "Family means everything. Don't forget who loves you most." Then came a text from Nadine, not an apology, but a backhanded attempt at reconciliation. "Hey, no hard feelings, right? Maybe we can collab sometime. Anchor XX, Nadine." I didn't respond. Liana sent a short message a week later. "We should talk. This can't be how things end." But things had already ended. The moment they hid my gifts, they told me everything I needed to know about how they saw me. And I'd finally chosen to believe them. Even Dad sent a message eventually, 2 lines stiff and awkward. "Hope you're well. Holidays aren't the same." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to fix that. Some absences don't need repair. Some distances are freedom. One summer evening, months after Thanksgiving, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. Daniel dozed beside me, Maple asleep at our feet. The city lights flickered like quiet constellations. The air was warm. The night was soft. And I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. My family would always want the version of me who folded herself into whatever shape made them comfortable. But I no longer lived in that shape. I no longer lived for their approval, their validation, their narratives. I lived for myself, for the woman who walked away from a table full of people who never saw her, for the woman who built a life outside the blueprint she was handed, for the woman who learned finally beautifully, sometimes the most powerful thing you can serve a family is your absence.